So I think most people would be surprised at the words passion and economist in the same sentence. I'd like to separate them out. For me, I got interested in economics because it helped me understand the world. Money makes the world go round, and to understand how the world works, and especially if you want to do anything to change the world, economics is crucial. I'm passionate about teaching. I love teaching. It's my identity. It's what I do. When people ask me what I do, I say I teach economics at York University. And for me, teaching is a way of changing the world, because what I'm able to do is to get students to have that light bulb go off and to really understand how things work and be able to make far more intelligent and personally helpful choices in their lives, not just about economics, about business, about jobs, about investments, but also about politics and about voting for politicians who are going to promote particular economic policies. So for me, economics is a way of producing economically literate students, and they turn into economically literate citizens, and that's really my objective. Why did I become an author? I've become an author 2 times over. The first time I became an author of the study guide accompanying the first edition of Parkin and Botta's Canadian Economics. And I became an author because it afforded me an opportunity to be a better teacher and to help my students. Those were the days before the internet. And so the study guide was the key asset for students to be able to practice and to learn how to do economics. And I knew that if I could create really good material for them, they would have a better job, they would do a better job learning, and I could do a better job teaching. The second time I became a Pearson author was for these textbooks, Economics for Life, and those also grew out of my teaching experience. In teaching introductory economics for years and years and years, I saw that there were so many students who really wanted to learn some economics, and even more importantly, would benefit from knowing economics, but they were terrified of the math, they were terrified of the graphs. And the introductory majors course is really oriented towards training students to become economics majors, which means training them in the tools that economists use. But for most students who are never going to take another economics course, that's not material that's really useful to them, and it doesn't speak to their own interests about just getting a better sense of how does the world work and how does economics work. So that led to the idea for these textbooks, which is to create a textbook that is focused on economic citizens and trying to give them the opportunity to learn what they need to become economically literate citizens. I think that Economics for Life are the only textbooks in the Canadian market that are specifically focused on what I call economic literacy. My goal is not to teach students or help students learn how to become economists, but rather to know enough economics, to learn to think a little bit like an economist, to be able to make smarter decisions in their lives as consumers, as business people, and as citizens evaluating policy options that they hear from politicians for the whole rest of their lives. Another aspect of it that's very different is that it's got a very engaging first-person style. I tell stories. It's narrative-driven. So I don't presume that the students want to learn economic concepts like elasticity, because they're not training to become majors. So I feel it's my obligation to try and seduce them into wanting to know what this concept is and seeing its relevance for their lives. So for elasticity, for example, it's not about how do you calculate elasticity, what's the relationship between quantity demanded and price. Of course I get there, but it's about why do businesses ever have a sale? Why do they mark down prices? Because businesses like higher prices more than lower prices. And of course the answer has everything to do with elasticity. So that's the kind of approach I take for all of the topics. Every chapter starts with a story, draws the students in, and then the economic concepts emerge from the story. This approach that I'm taking is called literacy-targeted economics. And it's been championed by Mike Salemi, who for many, many years was the chair of the American Economic Association Committee on Economic Education. And he takes a literacy-targeted approach in his work, in his teaching. And most importantly, he's done research studies with colleagues where he's compared, if you take students who would take a literacy targeted course, which is very much what's in my book, with students who take a majors course with all of the extra tools, and then you put them both into intermediate theory, the students from the literacy targeted course do just the same on average as the students who have had the theory course. And that's really important because when students first take economics in their first year, they don't know for sure if they're going to be a major or not. So you don't want to disadvantage them by putting them in a course that will not allow them to continue on in economics. But the results, I think, are just so encouraging because what they say is that you learn just as much in a literacy targeted course that you retain. And the reason is, and it's not hard to figure out, is that there's a narrower set of topics that you focus on. So you learn fewer topics more intensively. And with the extra time in the course, you can engage in active learning strategies, stuff that goes on in class. And that's, of course, what all the cognitive psychologists will tell you. That's how people learn. They don't learn from passively underlying. They learn from engaging in activity. So to me, this is like the most Pareto improving possible way to teach introductory economics. 95% of the students who teach introductory economics and never take another course get a course that's targeted to their interests. They become economically literate citizens. And then the other 5% who do become majors still learn the core concepts well and are just as well off as if the course had been taught as it is for a major. So for me, that's what I am going for. I think it makes everybody better off, and it makes for a way better experience, not just for the students, but for the instructors, because engaged students mean an easier time for instructors and a more enjoyable teaching experience.